everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. So lately, everybody's been hearing a lot about AI.
Right.
It's everywhere these days.
Yeah.
And yeah, that includes the world of SEO. We're going way beyond the hype today to really explore how AI is actually showing up in search results.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just hype at this point. I think we're seeing a really fundamental shift taking place where AI-generated answers are becoming like a core part of the search experience.
We've got a stack of interesting articles and research to dig into, so let's just jump right in. One thing that really caught my eye was this idea of AI actually changing the goals of search engines themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? For years, we've been kind of conditioned to think of Google's goal as getting us to click on those, top 10 blue links.
Totally.
But with the rise of things like voice search, where people are expecting these quick, direct answers, the game has changed.
It really has. It's like Google is almost becoming less of a springboard to other websites and more of a destination in itself. Precisely. And this is where AI comes in, right? Because with AI models like ChatGPT, able to synthesize information from these vast amounts of data,
Yeah.
Google can now provide those answers without necessarily sending users to other websites.
Yeah, and one of the articles gave a really interesting example. It was talking about searching for the best cleaner for wood slab tables. And now instead of seeing a page full of links to different websites and blog posts, you might actually just get an AI-generated response that's summarizing the best cleaning options. It's pulling information from various sources.
Right. And that's a prime example of how AI is changing the game. It's not just about finding websites anymore. It's about understanding and responding to user intent in a way more sophisticated way.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room here. What does this mean for all of us who have poured our hearts and souls into building websites and optimizing them for search? Like, is traditional SEO dead?
I think that's the question on everyone's mind, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't write SEO's obituary just yet. While it's true that AI is like changing the playing field, there are still ways to adapt and thrive in this new era.
Okay, so give us some hope here. What are some concrete steps that we can take to make sure our content doesn't get lost in the AI shuffle?
It all comes down to shifting your focus from simply chasing algorithms to building a strong brand presence across the web. Imagine if your content is consistently cited as a source of information by other reputable websites.
So it's about becoming an authority in your niche, even if those AI-generated responses don't explicitly link back to your site.
Exactly right, because the information that AI uses to generate those answers, it ultimately traces back to sources, like your website. So focusing on quality and depth and building this web of citations becomes even more critical.
This reminds me of a point made in one of the articles about, and I'm doing air quotes here that nobody can see, about seeding information into AI training data sets.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit? That sounds a little bit like we're trying to plant evidence, which I guess in a way we are.
Think of it as strategically crafting content that AI models are more likely to consume and learn from. This might involve using very specific language or structuring your data in a way that's easily digestible for algorithms, maybe even exploring partnerships with companies that actually contribute to AI training data sets.
Okay, so now we're getting into some next level SEO strategies, but before we dive deeper into that, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about these AI overviews that keep popping up in the research.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody what those are?
Yeah, so they're really key to understanding how AI is changing the game. Essentially, these overviews are AI-generated summaries that appear in the search results, often before any traditional website links.
Oh, wow.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, they're right up there.
And one of the articles had a ton of interesting statistics about AI overviews. For example, did you know that the average AI overview is only 157 words long? That's shorter than most of my social media posts.
Yeah, it really highlights the need for concise, high-impact content. AI overviews are all about delivering valuable information quickly and efficiently. And if you can't say it clearly and succinctly, AI might just skip over it.
So it's not even just about creating great content anymore, it's about optimizing that content for AI consumption.
Right.
What else did we learn about these AI overviews?
One fascinating detail is that 99% of them are under 328 words.
Wow.
So brevity is critical. But here's another interesting tidbit. Only 5.4% of AI overviews actually contain the exact search query.
Which tells me that keyword stuffing is officially a thing of the past.
Yeah.
AI is getting smarter at understanding the intent behind a search, not just matching keywords robotically.
Absolutely. And that goes back to the importance of writing for humans first and algorithms second. If your content is clear, well-written, and it's providing genuine value, AI is more likely to recognize and reward it.
Okay, so we've got concise content. We're not stuffing keywords. What else should we keep in mind?
The research shows that AI overviews mention an average of 5 sources per query.
Wow, okay.
That's a pretty small pool to be swimming in.
Yeah, it is. It makes building a strong online presence even more important. We need to make sure our content is part of that conversation, even if it's not always explicitly linked. But hold on, if AI is pulling from such a limited number of sources, does that mean only the biggest websites are getting all the love?
That's a great question, and it speaks to a really interesting nuance in the research. While those top-ranking websites do tend to get, more traffic and visibility overall, the sources cited in AI overviews don't always align perfectly with those top dogs.
So there's still hope for the little guys. Even if we're not dominating the first page of Google, our content can still get featured in those AI overviews.
Exactly. And that's why understanding how AI gathers and processes information is so crucial. It's not just about traditional ranking factors anymore.
This is already a lot to digest, and there's so much more to explore. We'll be diving deeper into the specifics of AI overviews, their potential limitations, and most importantly, what you can do to adapt your SEO strategies in this new era right after this.
Remember earlier when we were talking about those concise AI overviews? Well, it turns out they really do love their lists.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Like 61% of them contain unordered lists and another 12% use-ordered lists.
That's right. It makes sense if you think about it. Lists are incredibly effective for presenting information in a really clear, scannable format, which is exactly what those AI overviews aim for.
Yeah, it really makes those scannability stats from our eye-tracking software research seem even more relevant now, doesn't it? Okay, so we've covered conciseness. We know keywords aren't everything anymore, and lists are our friends. What else did the research uncover about these AI overviews?
One detail that really jumped out at me was that 99% of the sources referenced in AI overviews are only mentioned once per answer.
Huh. So no playing favorites, huh? What's the takeaway there for our listeners?
Well, it kind of suggests that AI is striving for diversity in its citations. So each source it uses is carefully chosen to support a specific aspect of the answer, rather than just repeating the same information from a single source.
Interesting. So it's not enough to just be mentioned anywhere. It's about having unique, valuable information that AI can pull from different angles, almost like building a multifaceted argument.
Precisely. And that ties back to what we were discussing earlier about building a strong brand presence across the web.
Hmm.
The more diverse and authoritative your content is, the more likely it is to be picked up by AI.
Okay. Last but not least, we have to talk about what seems to be missing from these AI overviews, which is any mention of e-commerce or user-generated content.
Yeah, you're right.
It's true.
The research showed that only a tiny fraction of AI overviews contain links to e-commerce sites or user-generated content like reviews.
Yeah, and that's pretty significant. Does this mean that e-commerce sites are doomed in the age of AI search?
It's too early to say for sure, but it's definitely something to keep a close eye on. I think it suggests that at least for now, AI overviews might not be the most effective channel for driving, like direct sales or showcasing social proof.
Interesting. So if you're running an e-commerce site, panicking isn't necessary, but adapting to this new landscape is critical. What are some concrete steps you would recommend?
Well, for starters, it really reinforces the importance of having a strong brand presence that extends beyond just your product pages. Creating informative blog content, engaging on social media, and building relationships with influencers are all still incredibly valuable.
So it's about creating an ecosystem around your brand that goes beyond just transactions.
Exactly. And while AI overviews might not be driving direct sales yet, that doesn't mean they're irrelevant for e-commerce.
Hmm.
They can still be really valuable for building brand awareness and establishing yourself as like a source of information in your niche.
So even if someone isn't clicking buy now directly from an AI overview, just being mentioned there could still lead them down the funnel eventually.
Precisely. And as AI technology continues to evolve, we might see those overviews become more sophisticated in how they incorporate those e-commerce elements.
It's all about staying agile and adapting to the changes as they come. Now, you mentioned seeding information into AI training data sets earlier, and I think we need to circle back to that because it feels like a pretty crucial piece of the puzzle here.
It is. It is. Remember, these AI models are constantly learning and evolving based on the data that they're fed. By understanding how those models work, we can start to create content that is more likely to be consumed and learned from by AI.
Can you give us some specific examples? I know our listeners are eager to get some actionable takeaways. What does the seeding process actually look like in practice?
Absolutely. One really practical tactic is to structure your website content with what's called schema markup, which is essentially a way to annotate your content so that search engines can understand it better. Think of it as creating a clear roadmap for AI to follow.
So instead of just writing for humans, we're adding this extra layer of information that helps AI decipher and categorize our content.
That's a great way to put it. And another strategy is to, explore partnerships with companies that actually contribute to AI training data sets.
Yeah.
This might involve sharing your data in a structured format or collaborating on content creation projects.
So it's about being proactive and finding ways to get our information into the hands of these AI models.
Exactly. It's a new frontier in SEO, and it really requires a different way of thinking.
We're not just optimizing for keywords anymore. We're optimizing for the way that AI understands and interprets information.
And that brings us to another really crucial aspect of this evolving landscape, the ethical considerations. As we become more reliant on AI to kind of curate and deliver information, it's vital to address the potential biases that can creep into these systems.
Ooh, that's a whole other deep dive for another time, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about AI potentially pushing us towards a more authentic approach to content creation. I think that's a really important point to emphasize.
It is, because here's the thing. If AI is constantly learning from the data we feed it, then the quality and reliability of that data become more important than ever. We can't just trick the algorithms anymore.
It's about creating content that is genuinely valuable, well-researched, and resonates with human readers. And if we can do that, AI will take notice.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation. By focusing on creating high-quality, human-centric content, we're not only optimizing for AI, but also creating a better online experience for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. But before we say goodbye, let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways for our listeners. So to recap, we've learned that AI is changing the SEO game in a big way. It's not just about keywords anymore, it's about building a strong brand, creating concise and engaging content, especially lists, and really understanding how AI gathers information.
Yeah, and perhaps most importantly, it's about being willing to adapt to this new landscape. The world of search is constantly evolving, and those who are willing to learn and adjust their strategies are going to be the ones who thrive.
You've given our listeners a lot to think about today. What's the one big takeaway you hope they walk away with?
If I had to distill it down to one key message, it would be this. Focus on creating exceptional content that provides genuine value to your audience. If you're doing that, you're already ahead of the curve, regardless of how AI evolves.
Authenticity wins again. Great advice. Well, a huge thank you to you for guiding us through this deep dive. It's been an incredibly insightful conversation.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about the future of search.
And for our listeners, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep creating amazing content. Until next time.